So he had done some physical things, but certainly nothing like this. So I sent my stunt coordinator to just go to his house and put him through the paces and see what we had to work with. Whenever you see like any kind of promotion of John Wick, they're like, Keanu trained for like 5 years for this. And I was kind of looking at it like, he's going to train for like a week. So he went there and did a day of training with him and came back and was like, we're in business. I was like, really?
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a mercenary and his target become unlikely allies in the sky in director James Madigan's action comedy, Fight or Flight. The film tells the story of disgraced American operative Lucas Reyes, offered one last shot at redemption, locate and ID an elusive target known as the Ghost on a flight from Bangkok to San Francisco. But when he finds the plane is filled with elite assassins who have orders to eliminate them both, Reyes and his target must team up to protect themselves. In addition to Fight or Flight, Madigan's other directorial credits include episodes of the series Runaways and Medal of Honor. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Madigan spoke with director Rawson Marshall Thurber about filming Fight or Flight. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Hi, everybody. What a fantastic film.
Thank you so much.
It's an incredible combination of humor and action and such a tricky tone to hit. When you took the job on, were there any sort of pillars that you wanted to make sure that you hit? Was it the action you had to get right, or the comedy you wanted to make sure you got right, or was it the tone, or all three of those? And how did you approach that?
I mean, it's all three of those. You know, the funny thing is I have this producer that I work with a lot who thinks very little of directors in a way, and he's like, the only thing we need that guy for is tone. We all do the rest. And it's sort of like, actually, directors do a lot more than that. But it was interesting hearing that, because that is a lot of it, you know, and it's very easy to have that not quite land, especially when it's the first time that this is the first movie I've directed as the main unit director. And I knew that was a thing. And as soon as I read the script, there are these outrageous things that are happening. But then there's like this really serious, like I was, you know, child labor and you know, all these things. And I'm kind of like, so we're going to have that scene. And then Josh is going to do a bunch of drugs and then go kill a bunch of people. And I knew that would bump a bit. So, you know, it was always a concern about how you land that. And it's tricky because you can either just excise that from the story, from the script. And I really didn't want to, because the idea that, and this is another thing that, you know, whether it lands or not, it was always tricky to make it land, that you're meant to believe you're watching the CIA because of the access they have to people's data and all these things. And then there's this shot that makes you realize it's a tech, you know, we give all our information to these tech companies, and it's hard to make that land. So I've either heard that it's too on the nose, or that people missed it completely, you know? So it's trying to find the way to thread that needle of as absurd as it is, yet still tackle these serious things is.
Yeah. I thought it was a great
tricky.
card turn. I didn't see it coming, and I was delighted when it did. So well done. So when you're trying to strike that tricky tone, right? This one not easy, and you did such a beautiful job. Were there other films that you looked at for inspiration? either photographically or tonally or anything like that?
I mean, not really. I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan, which everyone's always saying like you can never mention, like if you're pitching something, they're always like, don't mention the Coens, because the Coens do the Coens and no one can do the Coens but the Coens, which is true. But I just see the world funny in that kind of way, like not necessarily broad, but just like everyday occurrences becoming absurd, which is not necessarily this, but I think most of my comedic vibe comes from somewhere around that kind of zone. And I think that also I think, and I hate to throw out a reference like this because it's like, of course, everybody aspires to this, but Tarantino does a thing. Like, I feel like all of Tarantino's movies I see them as comedies, I really do. Like, they're very funny. And there is a thing that he does where, I always reference in Pulp Fiction when John Travolta explodes that guy's head in the back seat. And then they're like, man, what the f***? I got these brains in my head, and it goes from this casual conversation to like, boom, in this way that's really shocking. And then kind of goes into like, if you suddenly wound up in that situation, what would you do? So that kind of shock tone, because when it comes down to like chewing people up with chainsaws and things like that, it's like, does this become an Eli Roth kind of movie? But I feel like if you handle it in a way where it just becomes very absurdist and something that kind of punches you in the face, it gets you out of it being sort of like gore porn or something like that. And it was very important to me that that when we did do something that was too brutal, that I'm kind of winking to the audience that it's like, this is a bit more of a cartoon of that thing,
Yeah. So this is your first feature film, and you started in theater, directing theater, and then transitioned to VFX, and then second unit directing. And this is your first feature film as the director. What was the biggest surprise as the director of the project that you encountered?
Oh, that's a good question. Surprise.
Like they didn't.
It's funny because I've had to like everything along the way in terms of the other things I've done in film. Going into it, I was kind of like, there's no part of this that I haven't done. Especially in visual effects, because in visual effects you're in from the very beginning. Sometimes there are times where I was on a movie before the director was even named. And you're really helping set it up, and then you're there through the entire post process. I've seen the score being done, all those kinds of things. And it was funny when they were like, you need to find a composer. And I was like, that's something I hadn't really thought in detail about, because every other, the actual bit of being on set, the actual interacting with the actors, these are things that I've done. The machinations of action scenes, which can be very daunting and time consuming. I've dealt with all those, but it came down to weird little things like that. Like, oh yeah, that's one thing I hadn't thought about. Like even the DI I had dealt with in visual effects, but it would be things like that, really.
Well, you just mentioned the planning for the action. The action was fantastic in this. Was there a specific approach you wanted for these action sequences from a technical standpoint or an aesthetic standpoint?
Yeah, the main thing it came down to is what you really want to do with any kind of action is you want to prep the hell out of it, because at the end of the day, you can't rush something like action, because it comes down to safety. It comes down to making sure nobody gets hurt. So what you do is you really, really prep. But we only prepped this movie for like 3 or 4 weeks. So we were kind of, in a way, making it up as we went. So the North Star for me when it comes to an action scene is it's just got to stay completely rooted in, you got to know your narrative and you got to know your character. And if it's not something that is advancing the narrative and the character, then you're a little bit lost. So on the day, you suddenly realize you're only going to get done half of what you meant to. So it's just like, there's the big arc of the movie, and then each thing are these little mini arcs that are adding up to that. And whether or not it's like the same as a dramatic scene, whether or not it actually told that story is the main thing. Like one thing I said to Josh, which I've heard him repeat, which is kind of nice, is that I think of action scenes as like, it's like when there are songs in musicals. It's sort of a way of getting something across, that is a bit more exciting, than just having exposition, and so at the beginning of that thing, you want it to have gotten you somewhere further along than by the end of it.
So 3 weeks of prep on a film like this seems insane to me. Was Josh?
Me too.
Was Josh already attached?
So Josh was attached. It's funny. I got sent the script, and I just loved it. I loved what it could be. And then they immediately, I was talking with some executives at Thunder Road, and I told them my take on it, which was not the exact script, but, I gave them a pitch on it. And then they were like, "Oh, we want you to meet Basil." And about an hour before, Basil Iwanek is the head of Thunder Road. And about an hour before I was meeting him, I got a note that it's like, Josh Hartnett had read it and loved it. And I was like, oh, and when you're thinking about a script like this, you're not necessarily thinking about Josh. And as soon as they said that, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly how I was thinking about it, because what everybody's trying to do now is to make a clone of John Wick. And John Wick is great. And if you're not Chad and you're not Keanu, you shouldn't try to make a clone of John Wick, because it's just going to fall flat. So I was sort of like, and that's the way that the script kind of felt. And they were always saying it's John Wick on a plane. And I felt like it should be a guy that doesn't get hit a million times and is okay. It should be a guy that is a bit more human. That's not like a superhero that doesn't fall off a 10-story building and gets up and walks away. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with it. And if you look at Josh's career, it is so interesting. Like, he chooses the weirdest roles, and like, he really wants to like just try to be different in every role. And as soon as they said that to me, I was like, that just makes this go exactly where I would love for it to go. So he was on, from the beginning, from that meeting with Basil, and then Basil was like, "Well, you guys need to meet and see if you're simpatico." And then we met. We had like this 3-hour meeting where we just talked about life, and he's amazing. I mean, he's an intellectual. He's a deep thinker, and there are so many things. Just every time I watch it, I'm like, "That was him. That was him." Things that he came up with on the day that just plus the movie constantly. Yeah,
it was a wonderful performance, and I don't think I'd ever seen Josh do anything like this. Yeah. The comedy side, I'd seen glimpses of that, but he nails that part. But the physical demands on him, and the skill and the technical ability to execute those fights, that's not something everybody can do. Did you have any concerns going in, or had you seen something you did?
I had a lot of concerns.
Yeah, I would imagine, because if he can't throw a punch, it's over.
Everything that whenever you see like any kind of promotion of John Wick, they're like, Keanu trained for like 5 years for this. It's always this crazy thing. And I was kind of looking at it like, he's going to train for like a week for this movie. Like, what the are we going to do? I'm exaggerating, but really only slightly. And so he had done some physical things, but certainly nothing like this. And so I sent my stunt coordinator. He lives in the countryside in England, and I sent my stunt coordinator to just go to his house and put him through the paces and see what we had to work with. Because at the end of the day, you can always cut to the stunt guy, but that kind of sucks, and you don't want to do that unless you have to. So he went there and did a day of training with him and came back and was like, we're in business. I was like, really? He's like, he apparently trained like mad for Black Dahlia. His character was a boxer, and there was this huge like boxing scene that got cut from the movie, but apparently he trained for like half a year for this thing and like was like amazing. And it was a long time ago, but he still has the muscle memory from it. So they were like, we'll just build on that. That's why he's a real kind of like brawler in it. You know, it's less of the jujitsu or the flips or stuff like that. We had the fight we called the triad fight, which is the first fight in first class with the Thai performers. That was like the only fight we had worked out in the few weeks we had before we shot. Everything else, he was having to shoot a fight and then go in between takes and train the next fight the whole way through. Like there was never a day off. And also there were so many times where we didn't have the time to do what was planned, and we'd have to go to him and say, here's the thing you have no muscle memory for, you're not ready for, and we're going to have to do it this way just to finish off the fight. And his natural athleticism was so remarkable that it saved our life. He'd be like, what is it? Okay, let me work it out a few times. And then we'd be able to film it as a oneer as much as we could. It was very lucky.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it's incredible, that he is in his mid-40s and hasn't ever really done these kinds of things, because he's so built for, and he's huge. He's like 6'3" or 4. He's a really big guy. Like, anyway,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to know a little about your casting process. You have such a wonderful cast in the film. How do you approach it? What was the process on this film? And just talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, great question. It was kind of like, we're shooting in 2 weeks. I'll take that guy a little bit. Not entirely, but there were, like, for example, the pilots, there were, and we were up against it. But the pilots, for example, both of those guys read for the pilot, and, people were like, you got to pick this guy, because there was a guy who really looked like a pilot. And I was like, I don't know. It should be these two guys. And everyone was like, those two guys, but I knew that they would be like, for how I was imagining those scenes, I was like, it's got to be those two guys.
Are you in the room with them, or is it all?
No. It was 100. It was 100% either Zoom or, tapes being sent.
And then Zoom for callbacks?
Huh?
Zoom for callbacks.
Yeah, okay. Zoom for callbacks. Isha Charithra was just there were a lot of tapes for that, and when I saw her tape, I mean, she had like gotten a little like flight attendant outfit,
sure,
and she was just so dear and was just completely that part. She was just perfect for it. And it was funny when they gave her name, her main other credit was Bridgerton. And so I watched Bridgerton and was like, well, that's not Isha at all. And then watched this tape and was like, oh, and then met her. And she is just such a gem. Like, there were all these things in the script that I was sort of like, this is a plot hole. She wouldn't act like this in this situation. Doesn't anybody see this? And everyone's like, we don't think it's a problem. And then I talked to her. She's like, I think it's kind of a problem that she acts like this. I was like, you're it, because she really did understand the part enough and was bold enough to be like, I kind of think it would be like this. And it was exactly what I was thinking,
Wonderful.
And then Huey, the one that plays Garrett, was just, he's never acted before.
You're kidding.
The one, yeah, he was right out of school. He had just gone to the main drama school in London, and he had never acted in any movie or TV show before. And yeah, we just got really lucky. I mean, I went through every single tape they sent me.
Yeah.
Even the ones that were like, don't look at these kind of thing. And we just got really lucky. I mean, all those parts aside from Charitha and Josh, I feel like just did a really great job.
Absolutely. When you're directing and you're on set, where do you stand on set, and what's your footwear?
I try to stand right next to the camera if I can.
Right next to the camera.
Yeah. A lot of this was like the camera's here and then it's looking there, and you gotta make sure you're not blowing the take. But I try to always make sure that certainly with anything emotional that I'm right there kind of with them, you know. Almost like it's a conversation with the actors as much as I can. I don't have any. It's funny. I don't like have a video. There's a video village, but I said at some point in prep, I said, I don't ever sit. I'll just need a remote monitor, and I'll walk around with that. And so I didn't get a director's chair. It's like the only movie in the last 15 years that I don't have a seat backing from was the one I directed. Like, they were like, well, you said you don't sit down, so I didn't get a chair.
Oh, they didn't even give you a chair back at the end? Oh.
I have no chair back for this movie. It's like, yeah.
What was your footwear if you're on your feet all day like that?
Oh, whatever. Just shoes. I don't know.
Just shoes.
Yeah.
Shoes. Your feet were shorn.
Usually shoes. Probably these, actually.
And how many days did you shoot?
30.
Oh, 30 straight.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Was it 6-day weeks or?
Some 6-day weeks, I think. Yeah, I think there were some 6-day weeks. We started at 35, and then halfway through they took 5 away, which is why you don't introduce the Mormons and then suddenly they're killing people. Like there were scenes. Yeah, suddenly there are monks. It's like the introduction scene of the monks need to go.
They still get a great laugh.
Yeah. And we made it kind of a joke. We're like, who the fuck are they now? Like, people keep showing up.
What's your process in post? I mean, as a visual effects supervisor, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with post, but this was the first time that you were in charge of the actual edit, and what was that like, and what were the surprises for you in that process, if any?
On the visual effects front, I had to temp all the visual effects myself because we didn't have, it was a very tight budget. So if we wanted to screen it and have it make any sense, I did all the visual effects myself. And then it was funny because the whole scene where he's tripping, I did all the visual effects for that. And then after that, I was trying to explain to people, the proper visual effects people, what to do. And I'd be like, like when you do LSD, like how everything looks. And people were like, no, we don't know what you mean. And I was like, I guess I'll have to do these visual effects. So for that whole scene, all of those, I had to do all the final visual effects for that. And a few other scenes, really just to make sure that we stayed on budget, because we only had $500,000 for visual effects, which is, $500,000 for visual effects is tough. So there was that. I would say the biggest shock was when I got back, because I couldn't edit as I went. And because we were constantly having to sort of cut things, we were sort of making it up as we went a little bit. I mean, we really had to constantly call an audible, so to speak. And so I had it all in my head and I was pretty sure that it was there. But because I wasn't editing, there was a guy in London, my editor was in London, but we weren't really able to communicate as we went. So when I got back, I was like, man, I really hope the movie's there. And he sent me a cut and I watched the cut with no input from me. He had just done his best. And I went home to my wife and I said, we're fucked. Like literally, I was like, I'm sure I can make it better. But I don't know what I'm going to do because this is absolute disaster. And I started going through all the takes and was kind of like, oh, that is there. Oh, that is there. And because I was in LA and my editor was in London, I had an Avid here. So I was just going through, I was able to sort of go through every single take, and I would say this take, this frame to this frame, and sort of work on it that way. But we basically edited the whole thing over Zoom.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Why was your editor in London and you were here?
Because apparently they couldn't afford to, it was very, very tight budget. Okay. It was, and I guess whatever tax breaks they were getting, it had to be someone on the ground in London. He wasn't even he was in his basement. I mean, he was at home, and he had a baby in the middle of it. So there was like a few weeks where it was like he wasn't even there.
How did you find your editor? Was it somebody with before?
I found my editor. So
I can ask something.
There were a list of names. Like I gave a list of names of who I would want, and they were like, no, we can't have any of them. And then they gave me a list of names that were considered, and one of them had been a visual effects editor for Matthew Vaughn, and a friend of mine worked with Matthew Vaughn. And so I asked him about Ben Mills, who winds up, he's actually the voice when she says, officer, please start torturing the vet. And he's like, yes, ma'am, right away, ma'am. That was Ben. That was like a temp thing. And then we just left it because it was so good. But my friend who worked with Matthew Vaughn said, you know that the church scene in the first
Kingsman, yeah.
You know, it's like with the free bird playing and they kills the entire. He was like, you know, Ben really sort of like found the music for that and kind of made that scene work. And I don't know whether it's true or not. I was like, that's all I need to hear, you know. And Ben, like for example, there were a lot of the music cues and different things. Like he came up with a lot of really great moments in there. So hats off to him. And he also made the remote thing work because he had come from a technical side of things, you know. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So this is your first feature film. You never get to make another one. Never get to make another first again, is what I mean to say. And then what's next? What do you want to do next?
I mean, I you know, there's a lot of things out there that are percolating. I have this great movie I really want to make about gun control.
Mm-hmm.
It'll never get made. But honestly, I have this great script that's about when the National Firearms Agreement was implemented in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the most mind-blowing story. Like Australians are always like, yeah, we had a mass shooting and we just banned guns. And it's not at all what happened. It's a really interesting story. Like that's my kind of white whale that'll never get made. But I'm currently working on a movie about rodeo clowns with the Hober brothers who wrote the Red movies that are good friends of mine. So
that's great.
You know, so I love action. I love comedy. I love, things like that. So, and I have a movie with Chad with 8711 at Lionsgate right now that we're developing. So as long as you're developing, it's like might get made, might not. You know, we'll know if they wind up giving us the money. You know?
Well, congratulations! This is a wonderful film, and I look forward to many more to come.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America